But for all that, for half a century, the lure of Loch Ness has inspired men to hunt for the monster. Most dedicated of all the sleuths, Tim Dinsdale, once an aeronautical engineer, now a veteran of 20 summers living afloat on the loch, with some classic monster tales in his locker.
I saw an object about 250 yards away, as near as I can guess, which came out of the water, sort of. At first I thought it was a cormorant's neck, but then, of course, you could see that it wasn't a cormorant because it was too big, and it came out like a black snake, like a black anaconda. That's what it looked like. It came out of the water like that, and then it went down, and there was a boil of white foam. And then it broke surface once again with a boil and went on. I didn't see it again. Very quick, seconds, but it was real. And it had a startling effect on me, as it does, I think, when you get moderately close to these things. It suddenly becomes tremendously alive. And the first thing I did was put my life jacket on. You see, I don't normally wear one because you can't live in them, quite frankly. I've got them around. But the first thing I did was put it on.
Dinsdale's lonely vigil on the loch began on April the 23rd, 1960. He was driving along the shore when something caught his eye.
I saw this immense, extraordinary object. It looked like a back of a huge animal, reddish-brown. It stood 2 or 3 feet out of the water, 4 or 5 feet across, probably nearly as long as this boat, quite motionless, reddish-brown, and a blotch on the left flank, which I could see very clearly. And then, while I was watching it, started to move. A most electrifying moment. This huge thing started to surge away across the water. And I turned the camera, and I shot about 40 feet of black and white film at extreme range, but nevertheless, it was on film. This hump going across the water made a huge glassy wake, no prop wash visible. And then it approached the far shore, and then turned through 90 degrees and progressed under the surface, throwing up a wave which has since been measured on the film at a height of about 2 feet. In 1966, the Royal Air Force long-range photographic experts studied the film, and they said the film is not faked. It's taken from approximately the place stated at Loch Ness, which is about 300 feet up on the shore. The object seen is neither a surface boat nor a submarine. It moves up to a speed of 10 miles an hour, and a cross-section through it, a sausage slice, would be 6 feet in width, and as 3 feet of it is above the surface, they estimate will be at least 2 feet below. And finally, they said we think it is probably animate, alive.
If there is a monster in Loch Ness, it now has much more than the camera to steer clear of. The high-technology team, led by Roger Parker, leave their shoes on the shore to reduce noise when they go stalking with their ultra-sensitive underwater surveillance gear. Their launch is stacked with £40,000 worth of top-notch gadgetry. Not just cameras, but microphones, hydrophones, machines for monitoring disturbances of the mud on the bottom, and most significant of all, sonar, as Roger Parker explains.
It's quite famous, this particular instrument we have before us, as we did in fact on our very first visit to the loch, record a large animal in excess of 43 feet in length. And we had it in fact on this screen here for over 1.5 hours. The particular animal that we detected, although it was large, had in its shadow what appeared to be a baby. And a baby, I mean a mere 20 feet. On the second sighting of 2 smaller ones, which was some nights later, we recorded these on 16mm colour film during the night. On the sonar screen, they can be seen quite closely together, representing like a series of joined dots, which of course is the reflective pulses from the transmitted signal from the sonar transmitter. They are both fairly close together, as can be seen, and we firmly believe by the sheer echo and by the nature of the signal we received, they must be large animate objects. In actual fact, the termination of that long-term and most interesting encounter was the fact that somebody in a local yacht, presumably on holiday, was unaware of the excitement we were having and decided to use the loo at around about sort of 5:30 in the morning. So you gather one thing from that Nettie doesn't like flushing toilets.
But it's American lawyer Bob Rines who's come closest to proving the monster exists using strobe cameras.
When these cameras are suspended in the water and are taking pictures, normally they are rather steady because there aren't very many underwater currents in Loch Ness. And we did have a rare episode once in 1975 when we think one of the animals started disturbing our whole rig. And it bumped into it, knocked it, turned it upside down, and the camera pointed up towards the surface, took a picture of the boat, and all of a sudden, in one frame, we took a picture. We think that is of the open mouth and head of one of these animals. That's a picture that's pretty difficult to say what it is because it doesn't look like what most zoologists expected from the kind of animal they think the Loch Ness Monster may be. But that's the data, it's the true data, and that's a picture that was taken.
Then came the startling head, neck, and flipper shots of 1975.
And we think we're looking at an animal that may be from 30 to 50 feet long, has a long neck, very powerful neck, probably a small head. Flippers, at least some of which are somewhat diamond-shaped, and a powerful tail. And we'd like the zoologist to put the name on that. As a lawyer, I can quote what some of our British barristers have told us, that if the Nessie story had been a murder case, there'd have been a hanging long since.
Frankly, I'm much more skeptical of lake monsters than of sea monsters, because lakes, after all, are fairly small bodies of water, and there are plenty of eyewitnesses around them. And if these creatures come up to breathe, why aren't they seen more often? And if even the Japanese can't catch them, can they really exist?